Good morning. It is Friday, October 2nd. We are 10 months into this thing, which means it's almost over, which means who knows what's happening next. I'm in dire need of a shave and a haircut, and you need a little relief for a Bubble Friday. So this is going to be a bit more of a dire straits of a Bubble Friday because my office was invaded by a 2-year-old yesterday, and most of the bubbles that were here have been spilt into the floor. So bubbles have been shed for Bubble Friday for this week. Thank you so much for joining me for this video presentation, whether you pop in going live or whether you come in later on in the replays as this thing lives on the internet for a bit. My name is Jay Clifton Payne. You can reach me in most platforms by searching for Jay Clifton Payne if you are not familiar with me. And Bubble Friday is just a little ditty that we do to celebrate surviving your 40-hour work week, or maybe getting closer to your 40-hour work week. It's Friday is the end of the work week traditionally. So on Bubble Fridays is something that was created at a former employer of mine. We would go out to the break area and blow bubbles and just kind of blow away the stress of the week and just kind of celebrate getting past what was probably a pretty crazy week that we had. And that's what was something I did in the past. Someone asked me to bring something like that back a while back. It's not quite as fun as it was before because there really is no break area, and the current job will look kind of weird blowing bubbles in the middle of the courtyard. So I blow them on video for you guys for a few minutes and remind you that you've survived a week. You survived 5 days, 7 days, 10 days, however it is you go on your work schedule, or maybe you don't work anymore like you used to, but you survived a week worth of life and chaos that we are living in this time. So we'll get to some of the chaos that is essentially breaking news of the day in just a bit. So we'll definitely talk some chaos because it is chaotic for the day. But from Bubble Friday, I invite you to go to your local convenience store, dollar store, department store, Walmart, Target, and just buy some cheap little bubbles. Take a little time today and just blow them to celebrate blowing out the steam, blowing past a week. If you don't want to do something that's silly, take a moment, take a deep breath, inhale, exhale. It's just good. Just take a moment to quietly reflect, do a little prayer, do a little meditation if you can do that. I've tried the whole actual meditation point, and if I sit for more than 5 minutes trying to be blank, it just my brain blows up. So meditation doesn't quite work for me. But sitting still and just taking in the I guess the scenery, the consciousness is the best I can do. So that's the best you can do. You're doing much better than some people who don't know how to stop. Now let's address the craziness in the world right now, and this is something that essentially this is part pitch for stuff I do and part just sort of the chat that we do for this thing here. So this morning we received breaking news. Actually, let's go back. Late last evening, there was breaking news that Hope Hicks, a senior advisor to President Donald Trump, tested positive for coronavirus, COVID-19. That happened, I will say, around 8 or 9 o'clock when I saw it. I have a podcast, which as I fumble through buttons, you'll see my scroll for all my podcasts. I have a podcast called The Weekly Wrap Up, which is going to be recorded tomorrow, which is a news wrap up from Friday to Friday early morning. I did not post that into the thing late because I basically had things posted ready to go until I had to get up and take care of it. And so I didn't post it in there. I wanted something more developing. And sometimes it takes a while for actual stories to become things that are conversational. The point about that podcast is news stories that spark up a conversation that aren't necessarily breaking news headlines that take over everything. And then I woke up this morning to check the feeds, and the top story was President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump had tested positive coronavirus, were isolating themselves. And of course, that meant all news coverage all morning has been President Trump and coronavirus and all different angles on that. There are some sources that handle different things. I listen in on my ride into work for the POTUS channel on Sirius XM, and they do a good job of going through all the news. It's not all Trump very well, which is why I choose to listen to them. But it was an oddity of the morning, oddity of the time, and just what happened. So the number one thing I need everyone to see on this thing, because people know my feelings on Donald Trump the person, Donald Trump the politician, Donald Trump the business person, Donald Trump the personality, is that we should all right now be putting all of our prayers and all positive thoughts we have into the safety of Donald Trump, Melania Trump, his family, and his staff. Because despite what you feel about him as being 45, he is a human being, and no one deserves to deal with any, untimely illness, especially one that, even though he may have kind of flaunted back and forth and not being so serious, most of us know from experience of knowing people who've dealt with it or just seeing the reports and seeing the science, it can be serious. Some people get off pretty light and they are blessed. Some people don't. So thoughts, prayers, all from myself personally, and hopefully from all you out there, are going towards a speedy negative test, which means he's over it, and speedy recovery if there is something there. Some of you may have bad feelings for him. I'm not going to push you back on that. As I often say, you're allowed to hate 3 people at a time out of the world. Out of 8 billion people, not liking 3 very much is not too bad. So if he's one of your 3 people, then just don't wish death on him. That's all I'm asking. So with that, it basically threw a wrench into what was going to be discussed this morning, and not that it was actually really planned very well, but essentially it's my thought process was based on a speech I heard on Wednesday. We here at my job, we have chapel on Wednesday, and on Wednesdays for the students, they bring in a speaker to talk about various things. They talked about politics and voting and personal health and COVID stress in the time that we've been in class. This week we had a motivational speaker, a world-renowned poet, a bunch of things like that that came in and basically talked about life and talked about perseverance and talked about positivity. Every time I hear him talk, he's basically retelling a part of the same essential story, and it's not really deep story, but how he started off from a very, very, very low part and made his way to a pretty high part. He manages his business. The biggest takeaways he gave this week was the fact that despite the fact that he makes his money essentially being a creative and mostly doing things like poetry and speaking, he doesn't have to haggle over prices anymore. If he says, this is what it's going to cost for me to be here, and they try to walk him down, he can say, this is what it costs for me to be there. Thank you for the conversation, and not take that gig because someone else will take that gig for that amount of money. He's able to do a lot of stuff for his community and do a lot of stuff on the small business level because of his larger business doing on his stuff. And from where he came from and where he is, and more importantly, where he's trying to go, it's amazing that someone that dealing with the hand he was dealt was able to play through the game long enough to get to a point where he is now essentially a dealer and can help people get on the better level, on that level themselves. So on that, you have heard me talk about, my struggles and my, failures in just making things work, in which is odd to say because I have the ability to come to an office that has power, flip a switch, and talk to a camera and yammer for 30 minutes on a Friday morning, and I still call it myself a failure because I have failed in completing various missions and various desires, various business goals in those cases, but I have also managed or succeeded in getting up every morning and at least giving it a try if I have the energy. Some days you literally just too worn out to really put in any work, to be honest. There are those days. And we have those days, you just need to rest up and do what you can. But on a much more serious note, the more or less theme, I guess, that's been going around lately for what's going on is essentially working towards that thing you're trying to do, and working towards that amazing thing that you want to do that you can't seem to figure out how to do that. Another one of the podcasts I said I'm going to launch fairly soon, and that's going to be like within a couple of weeks, is the podcast for people who are failing. They are not succeeding in getting their dreams, having their dreams come across, and what to do to work and cope with that. And a lot of the work and cope with that, unfortunately, means sucking up and showing up the next day and doing it again. I have worked and coped with the fact that I hate doing videos by showing up whenever I can, hopefully twice a week, at least once a week, and coming on. I hate these things. I was too tired to really get up and move around and get up early enough to take care of this and take care of this. So I look like a hot mess. And I'm still not looking into the camera. But you only get better by doing it, even if you do it badly. And you can do something badly and still get better because you understand what's going on, what's bad, and you can work and fix it. So while I don't have a nice, pristine studio, a good place to sit down and do my work, I don't let it stop me. I've been producing and publishing and doing podcasts for about almost 10 years or so. And while I'm not on the NPR level and no one's calling me, Spotify is not calling me to give me Joe Rogan money anytime soon or anytime at all. I've used that knowledge, I've used that training, used that work to do that. So despite the fact that success itself is fleeting as a matter of these are the goals that I'm supposed to hit, financial goals, professional goals, work-wise goals, we're still doing it. I'm still doing it. I know people out there who are still living the dream, still trying to make things work out. I know 50-year-old guys out in the neighborhood who thought they're going to be rappers 15 years ago and are still out there putting on shows, producing concerts and things on the lower level so that they can say they're out there producing and they're out there making things work. No, it's not, well, nobody's touring right now, but it's not massive tours. But it's something. So you got to put in perspective where you're headed, where you want to head, what you want to do. You've got to actually keep a general mindset of just where things are. Because while the number one spot is a great place to be, and there's plenty of room for people in the upper echelon, there's plenty of space for more and more people to hit that top level, no one can be number one. And if you're the number 2 richest man in America, you're doing pretty good. You might really want to be that number 1 guy, and it might be so close that it flip-flops. That's because a lot of this is paper wealth. But number 2 isn't first place. Isn't the first loser. Second place is not the first place loser. It's the person who didn't come in the first spot. And while history books may not remember them as well as the first place person, unless there's some extenuating circumstances, we all remember who won the Super Bowl. We don't necessarily remember who lost it or who would have been the third place team in the rankings. We do know that being on that level, being an elite, even if you're not the top level, ain't so bad. So think about that. I know this is seeming like a continuation of the same sort of general message, and it basically is. I don't really have much more going on in the meantime other than get out and vote, because right now voting is the most important thing going on. We'll get to that again in a moment. But for those of you who happen to find this video, and as I said, I'm not all that famous and all that known. The major goal that I've been looking for in my podcasting, broadcasting, curation stuff is getting some sort of tertiary bounce. That's, primary are the people that I know directly. Secondary are some people that I kind of know or kind of know me that will kind of latch on. And the tertiary, the third bounce, are the random strangers that sort of pick up on it and stick with it. That's not happening. That's not happening for whatever reason, and I don't know why. And all I can do is either give up or keep going. I have breath in my lungs. I got out of bed. I walked to the car, drove to work. So I got no reason to give up. I don't have a lot of time, and honestly, the energy is waning because it's really, really busy. There's so many things going in there. But every day you're up, you have a chance. And we'll get to that again as well. So continuing the message of being a loser ain't so bad. Being a loser, or I should say losing and failing, ain't so bad, because there should be some sort of lesson learned in the process. Now, being a loser and just kind of giving up on everything, that's not so great. So if you need someone to chat about figuring out how to focus, how to reframe, how to get things going on, reach out. We'll talk. We'll get things together, and I can help you. Although the path to grand success, I may not be able to hand you off to Tony Robbins and get you on the path that way. I can help you kind of put in perspective what you got going on, and maybe even help you direct your steps and order things so that things are a bit more fluid, make more sense in the process. So before I get out of here, all the way until November 3rd, we're going to remind you folks to get out there and vote, because one of the things that I wanted to do that I'm not quite famous enough for people to listen to is to get people out there to vote. And unlike basically these days where it's all kind of one-sided. I know you heard Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, actually had an interview with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to discuss his endorsement and kind of interview them going back and forth, which turned to a weird conservative right-wing bashing of Dwayne Johnson and how The Rock wasn't any good anyway. It sort of happens when the guy you like, you find out doesn't like the things you like. The number one thing out of that is don't put so much stock into loving your heroes, because your heroes will always disappoint you, and you'll find out that they're really just regular guys who for some reason don't like something that you think they should because you think you're boys, and then all of a sudden you think you got to hate them. They may turn out to be a Cowboys fan where you're a Washington football team fan. Got to say it like that, something like that. So number one is that. That's the number one overarching thing you should remember is be wary of meeting your heroes and what they actually stand for, because they may be a great sports player, a great actor, a great performer, but then you find out that, they're not the nicest person in the world. They're not really good to their kids. They cheated out the best friend out of something to get fame, something like that. Not that Dwayne Johnson did any of that stuff, but he's endorsing Biden, so Republicans are freaking out. But here's the thing. I really wanted to create a rock the vote type organization campaign going forward, where it's literally getting people to register and get set up for voting. It's hard to do in this election because there's so many factions where, honestly, there's so much confusion from people who should be encouraging you to do what you can to vote and make sure you're heard, make sure you're there, because they think they got enough to win that they bring their people out, as opposed to a lot of voter suppression, a lot of craziness, a lot of things that are making it harder to get something done, especially since we're afraid of being out in public because of the pandemic. Whatever it is you want to highlight, whatever issue, if you're a one issue person, if you're a multiple issue person, if you're voting for the guy who's just because they're your cousin, you want to support them, and you got to make the other votes along the way. Find a way to get out and get your voice heard and vote. Get out and vote. If you still have not registered, there is still time. There's 31 days till November 30th, or November 3rd, I should say. And I believe the 30-day cutoff would be basically Monday. So essentially, go online, find out how, see if you're in the registry. If you're not, take care of it today, take care of it Monday. If you want to get an absentee ballot, 30 days out, apply for an absentee ballot, get one, take care of it. If you have early voting here in my state begins on the 19th of October, I believe. And so that's, about 2 weeks away. basically in 2 weeks, within a few days of early voting, me and the family are going to go ahead and early vote. Some of them already filled out their absentee ballots, so they're all cool. I just decided I'll go ahead and vote early since I've got, it just made more sense and it was easy to do. And it's easy to kind of promote that. You have early voting, early vote. If you don't have early voting and you know election day is going to be insanity, which it shouldn't be so much because they should make it easier, get up early, take yourself to the polling places, get your stuff out there, get in there. And then if you want to cheer on the other voters, that's your prerogative. There are rules about that. Please don't go decide you're going to independently observe the polls, because that ain't how it works. So that's not a good thing. But get out there and take your time and vote for your person who stands for what you want them to stand for. Stands for your conscience, stands for your morals, stands for your ground in fiscal affairs, in government affairs, in business affairs. If you're a one issue voter, and you literally, will die on a hill for one issue, and the people out there, somebody out there is going to come as close as possible. You just need to vote for the one that comes as close as possible, and hope, pray, and write them lots of letters to remind them that they stand for something that you said that is something you stand for as well. And so hold their feet to the fire if they sort of flip-flop. If they sort of flip-flop, they can explain it. Maybe there's a good reason. But if they're pro something and they go straight out the gate and say, I ain't doing it, you let them know that you're the reason why they're there and they should listen to you. Now, I have issues with single issue voting as well, because some things are extremely extreme on the one thing, and basically you have people who are ready to hand you the world, but because of and I'm not discounting anyone's moral or spiritual judgment or values, but because of that one thing, they won't vote for that person. Or, as for the case for President Trump right now, there are a lot of people who do not like the man for who he is, who he has been, and what he says, but what he says he stands for, and has proven in what he's pushed for in government, are the things that they want. So they're holding their nose and voting for him, not doing the vessel thing, because I think people are missing that one totally. And so we're going to just make sure that is said. So Georgia, thanks so much for joining me live right now, about to wrap up. And Georgia is saying what I just said, what everyone needs to say: vote. Find out a way to get there. Find out somebody to vote for. Don't just vote blind either. Go. There's so many places out there, news outlets and independent outlets and the party outlets, that are telling you what it is they stand for, what they say they stand for, what they're shooting for, what they want you to believe they're going to do when they govern. Listen to them, watch them, read them, make a conscious decision, and then pay attention to what they do afterwards, and remind them of what it is they said, so they can keep on saying it. So if you want to support my efforts, go to buymeacoffee.com/JClevelandPayne. That's buymeacoffee.com/JClevelandPayne. That's one way you can basically pop a couple of dollars in a tip jar, literally buy me a coffee there via that website. The podcast that I'm going to promote, which I'll put in the comments later, is the weekly wrap up with J. Cleveland Payne. That's going to come down, be recorded sometime tomorrow afternoon. So we'll work on that. You'll hear that come now. We'll go over the top news stories that weren't necessarily the overarching, overpopulating stories that were running in the mainstream media. You'll see how that works in a bit. Well, actually tomorrow when it gets recorded. But you can check out thisistheconversation.com to see more about that podcast and that project, and you can be a part of it. You actually can vote and have a say in what stories are the most important, because that's how it works. I don't just pull stories and edit them myself. I pull a list of stories from what people respond to as more conversational, and they're normally more conversational than the breaking news stories. Now, Donald Trump's positive COVID test did not make the cut because it wasn't in the actual time frame of when I cut things off. I have actually had all the stories for the week posted before I woke up. And this morning I woke up to that story, put it into the feed, and we'll see how it performs throughout the week. But I'm pretty sure there'll be other updates and stories around that we'll talk about next week. And we'll bring a bit of it up this week because it is, relevant now. In the meantime, thank you so much for hanging out with me, blowing some bubbles or not, because you made it. You got up this morning. You had the ability to open your eyes, take a breath, sit up, and press a button on a device and watch this dude with a bad need of a shave ramble for 25 minutes. Some people did not wake up and take that first breath. Some people were able to open their eyes, but not actually physically move or mentally be aware of what was around them. So since you had enough energy and enough power to get up and get out of bed and watch a couple videos, whether it's live right now or sometime in the future, next couple of days, you've got homework to do, or we've got work to do, not homework. Get out there and do something kind of amazing. And today we got here, at least here, got nice, cool October fall weather. So get out and enjoy some outside today because it won't be too hot. Don't think it's raining here in Central Arkansas, but there could be a blizzard in 2 hours. Little Rock, Arkansas weather is just that crazy. So get out there and enjoy yourself, enjoy the world, and do something for somebody out there. It doesn't have to be massive because sometimes the tiniest things produce the greatest results. And that's it. That's all I got for today. Thank you so much, Georgia Morris, for showing up for talking to me live. Like I said in the comments for last week, if you're watching this on my actual Facebook profile page, the service, the technology I'm using to stream goes to multiple places, and I can see all the comments from everywhere except from that one. And there's actual good reasons for that because Facebook is actually trying to do some good stuff, even if it looks kind of weird and shady. But thank you so much for those guys. I'll check those comments in a little bit. Hopefully you got something out of this. If you didn't, let me know. If you did, let me know. Hopefully I'm encouraging you to keep on going one more step and just keep on pushing things as best as possible. That's it. Thank you so much. We'll hopefully talk to you again next week. Let's get a couple more blows out because I opened new bottles. This is actually a good bottle. The other bottles were kind of weak, so I guess it's kind of cool that the little kiddo poured out the old bottles of bubbles on the floor because now I had to open up a fresh one to keep going. Thank you so much, everybody. You guys keep me going, and it's amazing that I'm blessed to be attached to folks like you. Let's do this again next week.